means you're a computer operative?
Excellent.
Hey yo,
Excellent.
stop playing, it's my turn to smoke. Heavy dose of that murder I wrote, don't let it burn your throat. I ain't from the same cloth, they be turning coats. I'm hood good, here to Chi-Town to Sherman Oaks. Ain't nothing worse than true lies, but new lies. I'm too wise, they be acting like they shoe size. Stormy days make you pray to see them blue skies. I'm from the fire right next to where the jewel lies. Scrutinize if you must, it's all we trust. Who hard is us, boy, we hit you with the karma touch. Tough as an armored truck, fresh like a barber cut. In other words, simply marvelous.
Check this file. I check this file. Check this file. I check this file.
Your flow dated 2 retros ago.
Sure is.
You were supposed to beat me 2 death blows ago. We can go toe to toe. We can go toe to toe.
Excellent.
Years back when you thought I might have mellowed. Grab the mic and rap, you fuck you, don't get I yellow.
Check this file.
My mind is the 9, so the brain will shoot you. When I write, it's like Stephen Strange looking in the future. This is shorty on, you got a corgi on. I'm sipping 40s and Rick and Morty's on.
Excellent.
Slow serving got me on the verge of murder. So catch me at your mom's house with a Tom Segura. Peter Aura, Saucony Azora, TC Tug of Pull, a Stanzo, brand Fedora. I'm dangerous like churches and storefronts. Favorite rappers getting killed, what they want, more guns.
Sometimes in this business, something very special happens. Sometimes the stars align and you find yourself in a position to do something that you know is going to be great. Recently, I got to work on the brand new music video for CZARFACE. And those of you who are fans of my work and have seen my stuff, you know that I haven't done a music video in quite some time. You might even say that I have been retired from doing music videos just because of how difficult and how complicated getting a music video off the ground can be these days. Whether you're talking about budget problems or you're talking about egos, it's a very difficult place to make a career as a music video director. And these days, the only reason why I would ever do one is because I either love the people and I want to hang out with the folks, or it's a really cool idea. And so I got to work with CZARFACE, and I got to work with Tom Segura and Christina P. from Your Mom's House. And it was such a wonderful experience. It was such a effortless experience creatively, and we got to create the new video for the track Bizarro, which I think is fucking great. I fucking love it, actually. It's one of my favorite new pieces. It's one of my favorite pieces that I've done in a long time. And the whole experience was a wonderful experience. I got to work with Seamus and George and Inspector Deck, and those guys are always gentlemen, and they always allow me to do whatever it is I want with treatments and concepts. And I got to meet Nadav, the producer over at Your Mom's House, and I got to hang out with Christina and Tom, and they both are sweethearts. Very exciting. And being a fan of Your Mom's House, it was such a crazy experience to be able to go into their studio, basically take over their studio in order to do this video. And if you've seen the video, let me know what you think. Drop me a text, or drop me a message on Instagram, you fucking idiot. Drop me a message on Instagram at Mike Pecci on Instagram. Let me know what you thought of the video. But there you'll also see a bunch of my posts that I'm doing for behind the scenes stuff. And I've curated a very special section on MikePecci.com, which I'm calling the Art of Bizarro, where I am putting up a bunch of still grabs from the video. And the still grabs are so fucking cool because of that crossfade trick that we do. It creates like accidental art, and it's so beautiful. But we also got to work, I got to work with Gina on this, and she did a bunch of really cool, very strange social media promos for the piece. And I've curated all those there, along with a lot of her, she did some Polaroids as well. So those you'll all find at MikePecci.com. If you click on the Bizarro video, you'll find a link for the Art of Bizarro. And there we go into it. I'm telling you guys, this was such a fun fucking gig. And when you watch the video and you see, and you go, this looks like it was a lot of fun to do, you're right. It was. Not only did I get to hang out with those guys, but I also got to bring in my long-term collaborator, my brother from another mother, Mr. David Kruder came in, and he was the cinematographer on it. And we had a very small crew. Liam helped out. Really great team of people working with us. And it was just a lot of fucking fun. And it happened so fast to the point where one of those things, you get lost in the moment, you get lost in the whirlwind of doing it. And afterwards you're like, man, I could have done that for 2 weeks and that would have been great. And so that's what I want this episode to be about. Straightforward and 100%. Like, there's nothing special about this episode other than the fact that I'm getting the dudes on from CZARFACE, and we're going to talk about making the music video. We're going to talk about our prior history working together, but also the things that we love. I know that Seamus is a bigger comic book nerd than I am. And I know that George and I really love classic scores from the 70s and the 80s. George has got an amazing vinyl shop in Somerville. We'll have links for all that stuff below, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But more importantly, we're just going to, hang out and chat. And so if you wanted some more material, if you wanted some supplemental material for the video, and I know there's a lot of new fans that are following and listening to this podcast that come from your mom's house. So thank you, mommies, for joining us. I hope your jeans are high and tight, as they say. And yes, because of the quarantine, I will be feathering it in order to get the look that I need. But I'm super excited, man. And I have nothing but great things to say about the Your Mom's House folks. And if Nadav, if you're listening to this episode, thank you so much for letting me come into your house, my friend, and make this piece. It's inspiring to see the level of quality that they put out of YMH Studios. And that motherfucker, I'm going to try to get Nadav on the show because he is so goddamn busy. He's doing multiple podcasts and producing multiple shows. It's insane to see the level of quality that those guys are putting out at the speed that they're putting out and fucking weekly. We've talked about this before. To put stuff out weekly takes a lot of time, a lot of skill, and dedication. And those guys over there do an amazing job. It was fun to see. And I just want to thank everybody for continuing to listen to the show. I know we've had a lot of episodes, a lot of content out there. Let me know what you think. Are you guys happy with us doing a second episode on Fridays, or is it too much content for you? Do you find the COVID specials interesting and fascinating? And are we talking about a bunch of stuff where you're like, just fuck off, dude, and just stick with the main episode? Let us know. Drop me some notes. Best way to do it is on Instagram, because like anybody else, that's where I'm most of my time spending. My social media time is at Mike Pecci on Instagram or at In Love with the Process Pod on Instagram. So yeah, I hope you guys are staying home, staying healthy. We just heard today or yesterday, today's the 25th. I'm recording this early. We heard that we're going to be confined for more time. We're going to be here through, I think they said like April 19th is what they're saying on this round. And I know that that's a tough thing for a lot of folks. We're all kind of going insane. We've only been locked up for like a week and a half, and we're starting to hit our limits. Hopefully you guys are finding some entertainment and some reprieve in the podcasts. And if you need some motivation, if you want to know how it is that I am staying sane and what it is that I have for my daily routine, then listen to our other specials. Right now, every Friday, we do a special COVID episode where we try to motivate you, we try to keep you sane, and we try to give you info that is on the up, because there's so much shit to get us fucking freaking out right now that I think it's good to have an escape from that, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's great that you guys have been following the show and loving the episodes. What did you guys think of the prior episodes? Last week's episode was Shane Daring, discovering the cat's butthole. I think it's my favorite title for any of the shows that we've done on the podcast so far. It's a great episode. If you haven't heard it yet, Shane is an animator for Adult Swim. He does all of their promo clips for Adult Swim. And I found him on Instagram because of his cat animation where a cat shows you its butthole. I love that anime, and I love Shane. I love where he comes from. He's a rad guest, good episode. Definitely check it out. So yeah, without further ado, let's not get too deep into it. Let's hang out with the dudes from CZARFACE, and bear with whatever sort of technical issues that we run into, if there's some lag time or whatnot. The internet being as busy as it is right now because everybody's on it, connecting was a little bit of a problem, but we figured it out. And you're probably going to listen to this and go, Mike, we didn't even notice. That's because Liam does a really good job putting these shows together at this point. So you know the deal. Find that special place in your home that you go to escape and listen to this show. Where is it? Is it while you're on the toilet? Is it in your front yard? Or are you still in bed in the same underwear that you've been wearing for the past 3 weeks? I wonder. Well, regardless, grab those noise-canceling headphones. Make sure they're sterilized. Grab those noise-canceling headphones. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the brand new episode of In Love with the Process.
Is your computer operative?
Excellent.
Hey, fellas. Thanks for being on the show. How are you?
Doing good, man. Thank you for having us. We're excited to be talking to you. To you both. To you both. Actually, I'm sorry to exclude you, Liam. That's all good.
So that the audience knows who you guys are, introduce yourselves so we can associate the voice.
Okay, I am George, DJ 7L from CZARFACE.
Esoteric from CZARFACE.
Cool.
Sorry about that?
I feel like we're in a police. I feel like we're in a police lineup.
Oh shit! Jesus.
So, how are you guys doing? We're all confined to our homes. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty well. You know, I'm getting by. Little. I have good days and bad days. Good hours and bad hours. Sometimes I'm making the mistake of, looking at these weird contributions from panic-stricken people with Wi-Fi making posts about things, and sometimes I'm watching a movie or just listening to music or playing with my kids, and my mind is off of it. But other than that, my body's functioning fine. I'm doing okay.
That's good. Yeah, it's been. I've been watching your Instagram stories. Your stuff's been really funny lately, actually.
Oh well, thank you.
Lately.
It's funny, Mike. I feel like I've been less funny than usual. Usually it gets a little worse at times. So they can catch me in the shower every once in a while, or doing something to provoke a laugh, or kind of form a lengthy distance from my persona on the mic versus my persona at home, and that's kind of what I use Instagram stories for.
Good, man. Yeah, no, you've been great at it, man. Like I know ever since, for the listeners that don't know, we just worked together. We all just worked together and did the new Bizarro video. And it just seems like we've been getting a lot of traffic lately because of that. Everybody has been tuning in to my stuff, and I know a lot of people that weren't really listening to you guys that were my fans are now tuning into your stuff right now. So it's been really kind of awesome. Like the last project that we did has sort of stirred the hornet's nest a little bit, which has been fucking great.
Oh, that's great, man. I mean, you as a director have always provided, our best looking, best edited, best shot videos. So it was an honor to be able to work with you again,
Oh, thank you, man. That's what this whole episode's going to be about. It's just you showering me with compliments.
I'm getting it out of the way, Mike. I'm getting it early.
Yeah.
I mean, you've taught me a lot of big words like anamorphic lens and things I wasn't familiar with before. Now I feel like I can go shoot my own movie.
And I've just reintroduced you to a lot of 4-letter words through the process of working with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the video. It was, and I don't know if I've talked about how my connection to it was, because I sort of came out of it out of nowhere, where I was just watching Tom's show. So I've been a big fan of Your Mom's House for about a year and change now. I was introduced to it by my buddy Tony back in Boston. And I was just watching an episode, I think, on YouTube, and I noticed that he was wearing a CZARFACE shirt. And then I just texted George, and I was like, dude, you know, and you guys, obviously you guys knew. And then we just talked really quickly, and I was just like, you guys doing a music video? And you guys said that he was interested in doing something, and I'm like, I'll totally fucking do it. Just because, A, I haven't worked with you guys in a long time, and I've always had fun working with you guys when we've done it in the past. But then B, you know, that opportunity to work with Tom and Christina and hang out at Your Mom's House was like, obviously it had to get done.
Yeah,
how did you?
It was great timing, man. Because you know I had gone back and forth with Tom, setting up potential dates to shoot the video because the song itself was a couple months old as it was, and you know then we landed the show date in LA for a performance, and you know we had Inspector Deck with us, and just everything was kind of aligning. So we had our golden geese were. Getting a time when Tom was free and a time when director Mike Pecci was free. And, everything lined up, you know?
Yeah, dude, it was great. It was great. And that show, which was a lot of fun. I got to be there with you guys, got to actually film you guys on stage and do all that stuff. That was a really great fucking show. Did I read that was your first LA show? That's not your first LA show, is it?
It's certainly not our first LA show, like as artists, but it was our first LA show as CZARFACE. So performing, I've done CZARFACE material in LA with Jedi Mind Tricks or, you know, by myself, but in terms of me, Deck, and 7L together, that was our first like full on Voltron CZARFACE show in LA.
Awesome, man. That's fucking rad. I didn't realize when we were doing it. It wasn't until after. And I was like, holy shit. Yeah. And the amount of attention that you guys got on that show and the amount of people that are, surprisingly, the amount of celebrities that are really fucking pumped about that show. It just, you know what it is I've been so far from you guys for a while. It's been a few years since we've actually connected, and just sort of jumping back into it, I was just like, holy shit, you guys are blown way the fuck up.
Yeah, you know, it's I don't know, it's going pretty well for us right now, man. And I think, you know, when there are people, as an artist, you have to learn, like as an MC anyway, you never hold your breath waiting for props from another rapper or something like that. If you can get actual fans that listen to music and creatives, but they're not necessarily rappers or producers or DJs. Those are the guys that are just going to keep their mouth shut and, you know, want to surpass you or compete with you. But if you have fans in different walks of life, such as sports or comedians or graffiti writers or directors, whatever it might be, it, you know, that's who you're really trying to entertain and make music for. I don't like, there's an expression, being your favorite rapper's favorite rapper or whatever. I've learned not to give a shit about any of that. And you don't make music for other rappers. You just make music for people, and people will gravitate to it if they dig it, you know?
It's the same thing in our business, man. Like if you are, you know, if you're a director, if you're someone that's sitting around waiting for acknowledgement from the business or waiting for acknowledgement from the fucking academy or something like that, it's just a waste of time. At the end of the day, who are you making music for? At the end of the day, who are you making movies for? It's the audience, right?
Exactly.
You know?
And that's I think that's a tough lesson for anybody as they're coming up through the years, because you definitely want validation from your peers and validation from the people that inspired you in the same art form. But, you know, as time goes on, you realize that the people that mean the most are the people that are supporting your music and the people that are genuinely proud to support your music and support you in, you know, in many different ways. So those are the people you tend to provide for or cater to, you know.
And and unfortunately, more often than not, the people you grew up idolizing really turn out to be disappointing. So, it's good to just focus on your music and the fans, and you know.
Yeah, it's true. Everyone, you know, I think they're disappointing because they're human, and the era that we came from, you tend to hold people to a much higher standard because there's not as many, I would say there's more blinders on or more things that can kind of create this mystique about somebody. But if if you've been following somebody's career for 10 years and you think this guy is a golden god, and then you hang out with him for a half an hour and you're like, wow, this guy won't even spring for some fucking French fries. This guy's an asshole. Yeah. It changes everything,
Yeah, dude, tell me about it. Like I hate meeting my idols. I hate it because it's a risk. You get into that scenario, and we've done it with music videos, and I've done it with some actors where you get into that scenario and you're like, oh man, don't be a piece of shit. Don't be a piece of shit. And then you hang out and you're like, oh, you're a piece of shit. God damn it. Now I've ruined the entire catalog of stuff that I loved by knowing you.
Right.
It's like you don't want to get into that position. And the funny thing is I think I even said it to Tom where I was hanging out with him outside, and I was like, dude, I'm relieved that you're not a piece of shit. And he was like, yeah, man. Yeah, no, good. And I was like, good. It's good that you're cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that he's actually a good example of the antithesis of being a piece of, like, he's just a great down to earth guy, and I think in general, somebody like him who plays with words, stories, things that are, little idiosyncrasies in human nature that can be presented as very funny. They're thinkers and they get it. They get things and people relate to what they're doing. So, I mean, I think they understand those little social nuances that can easily be, disregarded by somebody else who just doesn't give a shit, and
yeah, I mean, that's part of being a storyteller, right? That's part of being, I mean, what's interesting is that it seems that, and this is a topic that I've talked about on the show a bunch, but it seems that we don't give a lot of respect generally to age. Like as a culture, we sort of put youth and the explosion of talent from youth on such a high pedestal where people are super blown away by the 18-year-old that is making amazing music in her basement, or they're blown away by these people that barely have any of these life experiences to talk about or to get into. And there's nothing wrong with being incredibly talented when you first come out of the gate. I would be so freaked out by getting that kind of acclaim that early on, because how the fuck do you follow that up? But then at the end of it, people forget that with experience and with time, we've just been through the process of getting over our own insecurities and finding that level of confidence where you're not concerned that you're not getting praise from other fellow rappers or hip hop artists, or I'm not concerned about getting praise from directors or whatever, because I am so finely settled in who I am, and I believe in my work and I believe in my stuff, so that I can then start to tell honest stories that aren't fueled by anxiety to a certain extent. And I think that's something that runs rampant in most of the creative businesses. And part of me, I don't know if we talked about it on the show with you, George, but part of me kind of feels like that is, from a cynical standpoint, it's easier to control the youth. It's easier to control younger musicians. It's easier to manipulate them as far as like management and agents. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so they put these people on these pedestals, and we look up to these super young people. And then as somebody who isn't in the creative world, someone that is just viewing this stuff and listening to this stuff, it's like, what have I done with my life? Like I'm 25 years old and I'm old now, and it doesn't matter anymore. No one really gives a shit about what I have to say. And I don't think that's necessarily the truth. And if you look at what Tom, like if you look at Tom's, I just watched his new special last night. I thought it was fucking great. Yeah. And he's matured at such a level where he's becoming a fantastic storyteller now, and he's so confident in how he delivers his lines, his cadence. He's so confident, and he knows how the audience is going to respond to what his body does. That comes with age. Do you guys agree or disagree?
I agree.
Go ahead, George. You can expound on that if you want.
I agree.
Well, yeah. I mean, George, you've grown into such a sexy older man at this point.
Yo, yeah. Jeez.
Well, I mean, but joking aside, you and I
Yeah.
talked about it on our episode where you were saying that when you first started doing production and you were first doing beats, you felt like you had to do them in a very specific way.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it wasn't until you just allowed yourself to be free of that, and then you started to do whatever it is that you ultimately wanted to do. You thought your stuff got better, correct?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, pretty much, yeah. I was stuck in a very specific box, I feel like, as far as like, traditional hip hop type beats or samples or whatever it was that was going through my mind to do stuff. It was very much routine. And I think when I kind of stopped caring, they got a lot better, which I think came with CZARFACE, because I think when we first talked about doing the project, it really kind of birthed from just like, let's just do this. We weren't really trying to do what we're doing now, so to speak. We just kind of like, let's just make a record with Deck. Let's have fun with it. And let's just put it out. There was really no like, that was the genesis of it. And with that, it just kind of came to, whatever sounds good. Doesn't really matter. All the other kind of rules I had for myself before that, yeah.
Dude, it's great. I mean, and it really shows right now, especially in hip hop. There seems to be a lot of trends where people are kind of using the same samples all the time, or the production kind of feels the same, or someone finds some new hot thing, whether it's like trap beats or something else, and everybody sort of gravitates towards that. But you guys have stayed pretty constant in your creativity, both the production side and also lyrically, Seamus. You guys are very much a beacon of originality and creativity, and a voice that I feel like has stayed consistent with you guys. Is that intentional, or?
No, I just think it's doing what we love to do, really, as cliche as that sounds. But I mean, you got to enjoy what you're doing and be as honest and forthcoming with whatever I'm doing lyrically. What I'm saying, as far as what you hear on songs, is really exactly what I want to say. It's not particularly editing myself or filtering myself for the benefit of this guy potentially reviewing a record, or any particular people in our genre, or this is just me being me, and I think that's when it's the most rewarding, when people come back with positive feedback about something you've done, and it's just deviating from our course is, I think it's important to experiment and important to challenge yourself, or else it gets boring pretty quick. But you also have to have the same. You have to take perspective where the record made by the 17-year-old kid that's on, that might have some type of a viral dance craze attached to it or something. We're not really going to go out and try to recreate that, because that's their particular chamber or their lane, and we can zig and zag in and out of different lanes, but that's just, let them have their thing, and we're going to do what we like to do. It only becomes work when you're trying to make it for somebody else. If you make it for yourself, you can find some fun in it.
And do you find that it's easier now? Because obviously the music industry has changed so drastically. I mean, even from when you and I started working together years and years ago, it's changed a lot. Do you guys find it that it's easier for you to connect with fans and to actually make a living with the internet being the way it is, with the music industry currently being the way it is, or is it more difficult now?
I think from our standpoint, where CZARFACE as an entity doesn't tour as often as we could, due to a few different things, roadblocks and schedule conflicts, and the Wu-Tang Clan being on the road all the time. CZARFACE kind of is a more consolidated thing, that's just a stationary thing in terms of live stuff. I just feel like we're able to connect with fans worldwide via the internet, and I spend a good amount of time interacting with kids on the different social platforms, whether, kids, give us feedback on certain songs or say this song made my day or, anything like that. I mean, I enjoy that stuff, man. And I think that helps nurture the fan base and it's good for them, good for us. So yeah, it helps.
You're a computer operative?
Excellent.
So it's that time, guys and girls. It is that time to thank the men and women that continue to sponsor this show, even through our current climate, which says a lot about these folks. And please do me the good favor. If you don't donate to the show, if you never give me any money, all you need to do to contribute is to click through on the links below. So if you find something interesting, click the link because they're traceable links, and our sponsors will know that we sent you along to check it out. And this is really important, especially in times like this where we need to maintain these sponsorships. So please click the links below. Okay? That's me saying it politely. It's been a while since I've done that. First up, my buddies, the boys over at Puget Systems. If you are an independent filmmaker, if you're a freelance photographer, if you're a graphic designer, a retoucher, if you're just someone that wants a better system to play video games on, right? And you start to do the pricing on all those big systems that are coming out on the market, and you're like, Jesus Christ, when am I ever going to pay this thing off? By the time I pay it off, right, I'm going to need a new one. Isn't that fucking annoying with all the hardware that we buy right now, where it feels like payment plans are super easy and subscription plans are super fucking simple, but it always feels like you're behind the fucking 8-ball with that shit, doesn't it? When do we get to pay it off? I felt this way for quite some time, and I made the jump to PCs because of that. I wanted to spend the money on the hardware that I needed. I wanted to build PCs specifically for what I'm doing. And against public opinion, all creatives don't need the same fucking computers, right? We all have very different things. Different softwares require different hardware. It's just the way it is. And you can go out there and buy a baseline package that kind of works pretty well with everything. Or if you need something specialized, build a PC. Now, I know you're thinking, I don't know how to build a PC. I don't want to build a PC. I don't want to go through that fucking process because it's a nightmare of like hunting for hardware and seeing if the hardware works and did it get delivered right and is it broken? What the fuck's going on with my hardware? Why am I not being able to boot up my system? That's a genuine issue if you're trying to build a system. Some people have patience for it. I used to have patience for it back when I used to build my own game systems, but these days I need something that I want to take out of a box, put it on the fucking table and get to editing 100%. And I want it to be good. I want it not to lag, and I want it to run the newest shit. That's what I need. And if I'm going to spend good money on it, I expect that. I expect it to do more than that. If you're the same way, go to PugetSystems.com. On Puget Systems, you can actually choose a baseline system based upon the software that you're going to use or that you do use. You want to build a Premiere system? Click on Premiere. They'll offer a baseline. Now, here's what makes them different than anybody else. They want to hear from you. So you tell them specifically what it is that you want to build, how much money it is that you want to spend, and they will give you the best options possible. And the thing that's great about Puget Systems is that they benchmark test all this new hardware that comes out of the marketplace. So contrary to popular belief, the brand new graphics card isn't always the one to buy. Sometimes 2 or 3 generations prior work better with the software. You wouldn't know that if it wasn't for places like Puget. And now if you're someone that doesn't want to pay Puget to build a system and you're building your own system, they give that shit away for free. They give all that info away for free on their website. So go to PugetSystems.com, check it out. It's a fucking great resource for anybody that's looking to build a new machine. They love creatives. I think they're actually going to start their own podcast on the people that they work with. These guys are amazing. They've supported this show. They support me. And they were just in town recently. I just did their new ad campaign for something that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. But I got to hang out with the dudes. We shot for the day, and we got to go out and do our own little bar safari and have a bunch of beers and some good food and good time. So I love the dudes. They're great people. Definitely check them out. Go to PugetSystems.com. Also on the show, supporting the show as usual, are the dudes over at Quasar Science. One of the best advancements in cinema technology has been lighting, LED lighting. I don't know if you've noticed all your Netflix shows, how they look fucking amazing. Are you guys watching, like, what is that, Altered Carbon or whatever that show is that kind of is cool, but almost doesn't really make it. But it looks amazing. The show looks fucking phenomenal, and that's because of LED lights. The technology with LED stuff is has not only created lights that are cooler in temperature, but you can also program them. You can dial in all sorts of different colors into them. They're really fucking cool stuff. And one of the leaders in this marketplace are the guys over at Quasar Science. So if you're looking to buy some new lights, if you're like, Mike, what should I have in my kit? I highly suggest you get yourself a couple of tubes from Quasar Science. Soon I'll be releasing a new knife video for Dale Strong. A lot of those lighting effects were done with Quasar tubes. Think about that. Simply done in my back fucking yard with Quasar tubes. So definitely go check them out. Go to quasarscience.com. I think I'm just going to keep the show to 2 sponsors for this episode. Plus, as always, if you want to support the show, go to inlovewiththeprocess.com. There you can donate directly to the show if you want to send us a donation. I'm going to take some water here. Hold on. But you can also support the show by signing up for our Audible trial. So if you go to audibletrial.com/inlovewiththeprocess, the link will be below. If you go sign up for a 30-day free trial using our link, you'll get 30 days for free. You'll get a free audiobook, and you'll get access to all of their audio content. And then you'll have that for 30 days. You're probably going to want to stick around longer because you're going to get addicted. Don't listen to too much because you still need time for our show, but you'll get addicted. And if you want to stick around, stick around. It's a good rate to have it. But if not, cancel it. Doesn't make a difference to us. We still get paid for that initial. Now, this only works if you haven't signed up for a trial before. I know a lot of other podcasts have the same deal. So if you've done it through another podcast, you can't do it again, at least with the same credit card and the same name. I don't know if it's different. You might want to try that. Anyway, sign up. Go to audibletrial.com/inlovewiththeprocess. The link is below. Support the show that way. We also have a deal with Capital One cards. If you go to inlovewiththeprocess.com/sponsor and you're looking to get a credit card, especially in the trying times right now and you need a credit card, go there, check them out. We have 2 different versions. We have the Venture card and the Venture One card. Now, what is the difference between the two? The Venture card, there is a $95 annual fee. The Venture One card, there isn't. Now, with the Venture card, you get a bigger sign-up bonus. I can't remember the specifics. They're not in front of me, and you would think that I would have them in front of me, but I don't because I just cleaned off my desk. I think you have to spend don't quote me on this because it's all listed on the website, but I think if you spend $3,000 within the first 3 months, you get... I think it's like, don't quote me on any of this. What a terrible fucking read. Go to my website. Go to inlovewiththeprocess.com/sponsors, and you'll see the 2 different cards. Click on the Venture card and the Venture One. You get more bonus miles for the one with the $95 annual fee. So if you have more money going through that account, it's great because you get twice the mileage. You get all that stuff. But if you're just starting out and you don't want an annual fee, the Venture One card also has a really good signing bonus. I think it equals to like $200 towards travel. And I know you're like, well, no one's fucking traveling right now. Well, that also counts for like Lyft rides. That counts for all sorts of different things. So definitely check it out. And I know they also have some sort of deal now with Amazon. So you can use your points towards Amazon purchases as well. So I did a really dog shit job pitching that. So just go to the website, go to inlovewiththeprocess.com/sponsors and click on either one of those if you're looking to get a credit card right now. And your credit is pretty good. That might help you. If you're someone that doesn't know how to use a credit card and you're someone that doesn't know how to plan out your finances, don't go do it. I don't want to be the guy that puts you in credit card debt. Be responsible, folks. All right? Be responsible with your spending. So yeah, that's kind of it. I think that's it for reads. Let's keep it short and sweet so we can get back into the content on this episode. Let's dig back into it with Seamus and George.
Is your computer operative?
Excellent.
One of the things one of the things that I've always loved about what you do, brother, is that you're a comic book nerd the same way I'm a comic book nerd, and then you love collectibles, you love tradables, you love all that kind of stuff, and just the whole creation of CZARFACE in general was basically a comic book character. You wanted to create your own comic book personality for this album, which was rad. And then I love the vinyl stuff. I love everything that you guys are putting out. I think it's super fucking cool. Is this something that you've always wanted to do as far as the comic book stuff goes? Or was it just because you guys were doing a team up with Deck and you felt like this felt like a superhero team up and it was important to do a comic book reference?
I think, I think as far as the actual forming the group with Deck, that credit goes to 7L because he was the one crazy enough to think that we would make a full album with Inspector Deck. Right. And I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think Deck would be down to do it.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. What happened? What was it again?
I always say that, man.
I'm kidding.
George was the guy who was like, why don't we make an album with Deck? And I was like, all right. We'll see if that comes to fruition. And it did. But once we had that kind of on the table, we made a few songs and we could have called ourselves anything. But then I thought it would be a good idea. I thought it would be a good idea to, tie it together with a story. And a lot of the things that Deck has spent many successful years rapping about, and some of the stuff I've spent years rapping about, there's a middle ground there, common ground, and I felt like we could find that in the realm of superheroes, supervillains, pop culture. I think that's where I can't rap about some of the stuff Deck raps about, and for him to come this way and me to come that way, and we kind of meet in the middle, it kind of formed what CZARFACE is now, and that's the character CZARFACE, and he has now a little microcosmic universe that is backed by comic books, and it makes it much more than just a rap group. You know what I mean?
It's awesome.
There's action figures now, and there's obviously merchandise, the vinyl, the collectibles, that whole angle, the comic books. It makes it. More than two MCs and a DJ,
which is important these days, really. Because there's so many. There's such a huge. There's an ocean filled with musicians, to the point where most people, and we talked about this on our episode, Judge, where most people are just tuning into fucking Spotify and listening to channels, they're not even aware of who the fucking artist is. It's just like, oh, cool, that's the Wu-Tang's channel. And it's like, well, who are the fucking acts that you've been listening to for the past half hour? I don't know. It's the Wu-Tang channel.
Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing, regarding today's environment. You can walk into a bar and you can hear the most obscure rap records from 1988 and you hold this place in a higher esteem. But then after a few drinks, you realize, oh, well, this is just a playlist that this guy, you can ask anyone in the bar. Nobody knows what the record is. But it's the way that, things are now. And, a lot of the NYC hip hop from, the golden age is now kind of the elevator music when you're in a bar that's supposed to be kind of cool and chic. That's the stuff that they used to shun. Now, but that's all because of playlists and just the ease of it.
It's crazy. It's wild, man. And look, it's two different ways of thinking. Like, obviously, I came from the same generation that you came from, where it was like you go to record stores, you buy, maybe once a week, you buy like 5 albums, or maybe once a month, you buy 5 albums, and you're listening to those albums over and over and over again. So it's a little bit different these days, and there's a lot of really good things about Spotify and about these things, because you find, like, if you're deep diving, you find other acts that you never would have found. You find younger acts that you never would have found. But I think that's what's important about what you guys are doing with CZARFACE, because it does have this merchandise element, because it does have a physical thing. Like, ultimately, people want to get some sort of physical items from you guys, which connects you. I think there's something important about that tangible touch.
Yeah.
When it comes to art, because you remember that shit. And when you were referencing the bar, you know, I don't know how many bands that I found while out drinking and in an environment with good people, good friends, hanging out, having beers and burgers, and then just going, this is a great moment. What are we fucking listening to? And that track becomes that memory stamp that stays with you
very
for
well
years.
Put, yeah, definitely. You have your Shazam out, and boom. It's that happens a lot, man. That happens a lot.
Yeah. So I think it's smart. I think it's really smart that you guys are doing it the way that you're doing, and it's refreshing that you guys are doing it that way. You know.
Well, thank you. But I think we're also from, you know, that era where we came up buying cassettes, CDs, vinyl, particularly, and we want those things to remain, and you know, whether for novelty or for purpose, and it's those things are important to us. So we put a lot of time into the production of those, and that is a tangible thing that somebody can hold and keep and show to their friends, or just kind of show to their kids. You know, I get pictures sent to us all the time of their kids, people's kids that are, you know, somewhere around our age, and their children are probably, you know, under 10, and they're, you know, reading our comic books that we've created out of, you know, our music. And it just becomes a little bit more than the actual recording of the songs themselves. You know, it's cool.
It's great because there's a good tie-in, man. There's a great tie-in between how you guys are marketing and promoting it, and then what it is that you're talking about lyrically, because a lot of the stuff that you're talking about resonates hard with this generation that is, like 2 or 3 generations into consumerism, 2 or 3 generations into different Star Wars. Like, it's really kind of important. And then you combine that with the production that you're doing, George, on this stuff. And for those of you who don't know, George has a vinyl shop in Somerville, Massachusetts. What's the name of the shop again, George?
Vinyl Index. It's at Bow Market, right in Union Square.
That's right. We actually recorded your episode in there.
Yeah.
But the thing that George and I get real fucking nerdy about is you've got a love for old scores, old 1970s cinema, 80s cinema scores, and the vinyls that you guys have in your shop are fucking great.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
But I love the samples. I love the production that you guys are doing behind these tracks, especially in Bizarro. There was a couple of really great moments that were so much fun to add visuals to. Like that, I don't know if it's like a piano hit, that boom, and then we were able to do that flashlight stuff.
Yes, that was a good call on your part with the kind of strobing it a little bit, or what you were doing.
Dude.
Yeah.
Well, dude, there's always because I get asked to do music videos all the time, and you're like, okay, let's hear the track. And there's that moment where you play that track where there's a sense of relief where it's like, oh, the track's cool, thank God.
Yeah.
Because it stimulates visuals.
Sure.
You know, and I thought that the sounds for that track were very motivating. And it was one of the fastest treatments that I came up with, where it was just like, okay, this is what we do. Bam, 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 bam. There wasn't any thought process behind it. It was, I think the idea of doing the David Lynch vibe was because their set felt like David Lynch's set. It's got the red.
It's very much.
And,
yeah.
And the way, and the placement of their cameras when they're recording and everything, it just felt very Lynchian. And it's like a super cheap effect to be able to do the reversal stuff. And then doing that reversal stuff and not subtitling that reversal stuff is fun for the fans, because the fans.
I think initially you were going to subtitle, right? Or no, I forget.
Initially I was going to, and then we were listening to it, and I'm like, nah, the fans are going to fucking love this shit.
Yeah, somebody already reversed them back. So you know what they're saying now. So,
Mike, what you had said about when you were coming up with the treatment for it, and it didn't require a lot of thought at all. I think that speaks to having the confidence in what's going on upstairs in your own head. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like the first thought, best thought type of idea. And I think a lot of our music is that way too. And it's not constantly, shitting on our own ideas. It's just kind of trusting yourself when you have a good vision and it's coming from yourself who has been, tested and proven to be successful and talented. I think a lot of artists could benefit from trusting themselves more, being themselves more. And, you fleshing out that treatment in relatively no time proved to be, a really good choice in direction for the whole thing. And it worked. Tom loved it and Christina loved it. And it came together very well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take full credit for all that, but I appreciate it. I think at the end of the day, I always equate directing to throwing a party. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the right amount of people that you can rely on, and you're trying to get enough odd people invited. So whenever you do a party, you invite the regulars, and then you invite the people that you know are going to cause a little bit of stir and a little bit of trouble, just to make it interesting. And I knew, because we've worked together, we did 3 videos. I think we did 3 videos prior.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we did 3, right? It was
we did a few. You guys, we did that commercial for Bars of Death too for MTV.
Oh yeah, jeez. Yeah.
But there was that. There was the retrospects video, and then there was Air 'Em Out.
Yep. So I had worked with you guys, and I know what your strengths are, and I know what you guys like to do on camera, and where you guys really play out on camera, and it helps knowing how the audience reacted to specific bits and how the audience reacts to comedy. I know how to put George in scenarios to make him funny, so so that's fun. Yeah, and then I know this episode's just a giant pat on the back. Here we go. But I thought that Seamus, I told you on set, man, your acting ability has been awesome, dude. When we were doing that performance stuff, I was like, whoa, what's going on? Seamus taking acting classes or something? What's happening here?
Thank you, man. I mean, I don't know what else you want to say, but this is a good time to say it. You want to tell me more? I appreciate that, man. I don't know much about the actual act of the process of acting. I was just kind of doing how you directed me to.
Well, you were great.
Thank you.
You were great, and I promise the listeners that it isn't just going to be a fluff fest. But you were great. But my point is that when I was coming up with the treatment, I knew what your strengths were. I knew what our time restrictions were. Because I've been doing enough low-budget music videos in my past, I knew what I could use for techniques and tricks based upon time. Because time is the big issue with music videos, because you're dealing, especially with this one, where there are 3 different main leads for it, and they're coming from different places, and deck schedules all over the place because he's touring with Wu-Tang. And so the difficulty, I think, with a lot of younger music video directors is that they get the gig, or they somehow get into the position where they're like, finally is my chance. You know what I mean? And you're there and you're trying to put together what you have always envisioned to be the most perfect music video shoot. Whether it's I'm going to do a studio, I'm going to do all these great close-ups, I'm going to have all this really amazing gear, and I'm going to bring all this stuff in. And those things become the important element, especially in a time period where having a career as a music director is impossible, just literally because the budgets aren't there. And so you don't do this stuff to make money anymore because it just doesn't exist. Yeah. I think it's one of the careers that got hit hard when people stopped buying CDs.
Right.
Because it's a support industry. It's a support industry for musicians. And so once the labels weren't making that kind of loot, quote unquote, and they had an opportunity with the internet to say, well, it's not for TV, so we're not going to pay you what you're supposed to get paid anyways. It's become virtually impossible to make a living as a music video director anymore.
Gotcha.
So the only reason to take something like this on is because it's either a great opportunity for you or you're working with friends. And what a lot of directors don't realize is that if you do music videos, and you're hoping to use that to transition into doing film and features, when you go into a room with execs, they don't give a fuck if you've done music videos. They don't give a shit how many music videos you've done. And to the point where it's been detrimental.
Really?
Like oh my God, dude. I don't want to give specific names. I don't know if I've told you guys the story, but we pitched a movie to another director, and the director was watching one of my films, and afterwards he was just tearing through my pitch. He was just putting holes in it. He's like, what about this? What about this? I'm like, can I finish giving you the pitch before you tear holes in it? Yeah. And I'm like, why are we here? Why am I fucking here? You know, my agents told me that you liked the short. I said, did you watch the short? He goes, yeah, I saw the short. I'm like, okay. You know, the East Coast of me just wants to jump over the table and fucking strangle him to death.
Right.
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. And I was like, well, what did you think of the short? And he goes, well, it just felt too much like a music video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so if young directors think that they're going to get their feature deal because of what happened in the 90s, which was like David Fincher and Spike Jonze and all those guys that
I was going to say, like a lot of big directors kind of had their foot in the music video world, you know. But it doesn't exist that way, man. No one really cares about music videos, and I think ultimately it's because music videos don't have the same platform that it used to. Yeah. Like MTV. MTV was a huge platform. Yeah.
You know, and people would tune into that and listen to that. But now, you know, we do music videos and we send it to people and they look at it on their phone. They go, oh, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
You know, and so then you're just sitting there. I remember after we did this video, I sent it to you guys and you guys were super pumped about it. And then I sent it to a couple of friends that I had and they were just like, yeah, that's cool. And I remember I'm sitting here with Gina after doing like a week of intense editing and your adrenaline's pumping. And I'm just like, okay, is anybody going to be excited?
Yeah, shit, man.
And that's kind of what doing music videos has become, where the digestion of it is so quick and unrewarding that you know you have to have a good time doing it. And it brings me back to my point with what we were doing. Once you guys said that we were going to do it, once we knew that Tom was involved, it was like, okay, this could be fun because we get to go to his, let me write a treatment where we go to his set. Let's do all that. But then also I was able to bring like David Cruda on. I was able to bring on a bunch of friends that I know and can rely on that do things and that are creative with nothing and keep things really simple and fast. And that recipe is how the treatment came up so quickly. Because it was just like, okay, here's knowing that I no longer really care about being a music video director, knowing that this is for fun and knowing that it's about hanging out with you guys and having a great time and making something that's great, but more about the experience. The treatment just came like that at that point. And I think that's that experience that you were talking about, Seamus. It's just understanding what it really is all about and not projecting what I want it to be.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, that was me ranting and fucking raving.
Yeah, no, I was taking a piss during that whole thing. But no, I agree with you, man. I agree, and there's really not much else to be said about that because you fucking covered it, buddy. I'll tell you.
Let's change the topic a little bit. Let's get nerdy, man. Let's so how you've been
we weren't really talking about pro football there either, you know.
Yeah, let's separate my listeners even more by getting super nerdy about comic books. How long have you been reading comics, Shane?
Probably I think since I could read, really. So that's been many, many years, man. I mean, we're talking easily the 80s, you know. I think comic books really have been one mainstay, one thing you could always, you know, you check out every once in a while, but then you always come back to them and the art and the stories and just the fantasy and escapism of it all is pretty valuable to me.
What books did you come in on? Do you remember your first books?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Spider-Man, X-Men, Batman, Moon Knight, Rom, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, all the different properties that were turned into comic books, but also the flagship characters of all, there was never, I would think that maybe the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles might have been the first comic that I grabbed that was the beginning of something. So, all these characters that I love so much, they were created in the 60s, 50s, whatever, even 40s, but the Ninja Turtles, they grew, I think they came about in 85, 84 or something. And I grabbed the first issue in Cambridge at a signing when the Eastman and Laird were there. And that was probably the first thing that I felt like I was part of from the beginning,
Yeah. Eastman, I actually got to hang out with Eastman when I was at a Comic-Con once. He was a really interesting character.
Yeah.
And I forget the origins. I think the origins of that book were that they were making fun of something from Marvel. I think it was like essentially making fun. The foot was making fun of the hand. So it was essentially them making fun of the hand, which was the ninja group in the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Daredevil. Yep. And I forget the other references, but I think they were just making fun of Marvel stuff when they did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And for a lot of people that don't know, if you go back and look at the original books, they're pretty fucking dark, actually. They weren't the, cowabunga fucking, pizza eating.
Yeah. Definitely.
Turtles,
they were violent,
Yeah. They were cool as shit, dude.
Yeah. But I think, comics in general was one of the first things that really got me reading in general and learning bigger words than what I was already accustomed to. You'd learn out what you would, read about what telekinesis was, or, magnetic radioactive powers. And it just would open your mind to things that you wouldn't find, in your room otherwise.
Yeah. That's the story behind my, introduction to comic books was that my mother was concerned because I hated reading. I hated it. And it's probably because I had some form of dyslexia or undiagnosed dyslexia or something. I hated it. And my mother went to a drugstore and she grabbed a couple off a rack and she threw them at me. And she's like, well, if you're not going to read books, read these. And that's how I got in. And I think my in was Spider-Man. It was Eric Larson Spider-Man. So it was right around the time that Venom was introduced. We're getting nerdy.
Yeah.
It was right then, man. It was that. And then I fell in love with Jim Lee, obviously, like everybody else did. And was into the X-Men, and then jumped ship to the Wildstorm, but Image, jumped ship to Image for a while with Spawn and did all that stuff. And then I kind of dropped out in my, I'd say late 20s. I just stepped away from comics, and then came back hard right before Marvel was bought by Disney, and I was in with the X-Men and all that kind of stuff. So it's wild how it's like this comfort that at least I have from my youth, where I was the only one in my family that went into a comic book store. No one else walked in with me. It was my own personal thing. It was my own sense of adventure that I had. And I loved that about it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, man. And I feel like today with the big blockbuster movies, it's easy to, it's kind of somewhat rewarding to have been have this allegiance and dedication and commitment to all these characters for so long. And now I feel as though the technology and the CGI, everything is kind of there to make these things seem, regardless of your opinion of the actual movies, the look of the movies is tends to be pretty breathtaking in a lot of ways.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, you've got the biggest conglomerate known to man at this point, owning all that stuff with them. They could throw money, they could throw countries at it at this point.
Well, so it's funny you say that, because throwing countries at, I think it was Infinity War, it might have been Endgame, I forget which one. I mean, you were able to see Iron Man actually throw, or Thanos actually throw a moon or a star at Iron Man.
Yeah.
He'd literally throw one, and that's something you would see in a comic book, and it looked great. And it's like, wow, this is something that I could just watch now. I mean, who would ever think you would see somebody like Thanos in a movie and have it be somewhat credible, believable, and not believable, but I mean, it look authentic, you know?
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Yeah. And the thing that took me a little while to get used to with you know, how popular Marvel stuff got. And the thing that I you know what it is, the thing that I loved about the comic books when I was a kid was like I said, I got pulled in probably on like Spider-Man, like it was like issue 300 and something. So it was like 300 issues had existed before this.
Yep.
And this was before Marvel started to do the whole every year, let's reboot every book,
right.
Which drove me fucking crazy. Because when I first got into the books, you'd go buy you'd buy the new issue off the shelf, and then you'd go beg the kids playing card games to get off the old boxes, and then you just sort of go through the old boxes and buy a bunch of back issues.
The kids playing card games. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know what you mean, man.
Yeah, and then you'd dig backwards and you'd find the story. And the thing that's so interesting about comic book characters is that for a lot of them, they've existed for over 100 years, and they've been these characters that all these different writers have added to the mythos of, but they're long-standing continuity that has existed with these characters for over 100 years, 100 and change years. And that has always been really interesting to me. And I think one of the byproducts of, you know, it becoming such a giant corporate structure at this point is that I think a lot of the company people are more concerned about whether or not they're making it as easy as possible for the youth to get interested and involved with it. And so we were seeing it in the comic book industry with every year they'd be like Spider-Man #1. You're like, what the fuck? So does this mean like the 500 issues prior to this don't mean anything? Oh no, they do. They're just saying that it's #1. What the fuck does this mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I think it's kind of been revealed to be a tactic to regenerate excitement in a certain title. You know, there's a lot of times where the first issue of a comic is going to sell, you know, right up 4 times as much as the second or third, fourth. There's always going to be a huge drop off after the first issue because everybody wants the #1 because, you know, there's a higher chance of that being valuable one day, you know. And of course, these days, the likelihood of that is dwindling. But I mean, if you happen to get a #1 of somebody from in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, you know, it might have a little bit of value to it, depending on how they perform at the box office. You know, I mean, if you take the first appearance of Groot, from the 60s, I mean, now you have to. That's like a $7,000 book at this point because of, you know, his rise to fame through Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, and he wasn't even Guardian of the Galaxy then, but it's interesting how that stuff plays out.
I love because when I was a kid, it was the same thing where it was like, okay, so these are going to be worth something, so buy them, bag them, box them, you know, do all that stuff with them, and then you grow up and you go, yeah, well, everybody else did that, so there's such a plethora of these on the market right now.
That's what it is, man. Like I think it was X-Force 1 or something. It was like the highest selling comic book of all time. But it was like the first one, but it's not worth anything because everyone in the world has it, you know?
Well, and then you mentioned Groot, and it's like, well, no one really gave a fuck about, you know, before the movie, I didn't give a shit about Guardians of the Galaxy. Like they were like a book that was a smaller title that like maybe you would, like if you were deep into it, maybe you get into it, but it wasn't a top fucking seller at all. So
No, it wasn't. But see, I think the movie just brings everything together for people in the story, and those are new. A lot of those are new themes that were brought together by James Gunn, and you know, if you have the star power of somebody like Chris Pratt in the movie, and you know, you learn a little bit more about Rocket Raccoon and Groot and his relationship, with their relationship together, and Drax. I think it just gives it a lot more gravity for people. Whereas I don't even, just a case in point, I don't even have an idea of what the Groot first appearance was in 1960 or whatever. It's Tales to Astonish, I think the book was that he was in. I don't know what it was worth before Guardians came out. I know what it's worth afterward, though, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And James, by the way, James Gunn killed it. I think that's my favorite film in that entire franchise because somehow he was able to come in with his own voice and take a property that no one gave a shit about.
Right.
And really make his own film with it. And I don't know all the specifics, but the rumor is that whole cassette tape thing was his pitch.
Yeah, definitely. He brought that in to ground, to put it into, you know, it was obviously sci-fi, it's in space, but bringing that grounded the whole thing and made it more relatable to people because you have this aspect that people can latch onto, and that stuff happened on Earth. It was music from, you know, our times, our planet, and that I think people could gravitate towards that. And for me, that soundtrack, not the score, but the actual soundtrack with the songs from the 70s and everything, that stuff that movie gave new life to 95% of those songs to me. A lot of those songs I didn't even like before they were associated with that movie, and now it's the only album my entire family can agree on. You know, my daughter wants to hear, you know, Princess Frozen songs. My son wants to hear this. My wife wants to hear it, but we all like the Guardians of the Galaxy thing because it's associated with the movie, and it ties us into scenes, and as you said, it becomes a memory stamp for everybody involved. You know,
dude, the opening song, what is it? 40cc, or I forget the name of the act that does the opening where he's in the hospital, and it's I'm Out of Love. That track is fucking amazing. And it's one of those tracks that I probably heard when I was a kid riding in the back of a station wagon when my mom was listening to like Magic 106.7 or whatever trash radio station she listened to.
Yeah.
And that was just there. So when that movie opened and that synth started, I was like, holy fuck. And it literally brought me back to being that kid's age, practically.
Yeah. And I think that's a very useful device. It's a great way to make it work, man. I'm telling you.
Dude, it's so great, man. And that song, I love that song now because of that sequence. Because of that bit.
Right?
Yeah. And, you know, as we get super nerdy about this stuff, I did some history on that song because the song sounds super depressing. Like I'm not in love. Don't forget about it. If you do the history on how he wrote that song, it's a joke. He actually wrote that song for his girlfriend because his girlfriend was giving him shit that he would never say that he loved her, and so he wrote this track. He wrote this track as a joke to her, and you listen to it and you're like, man, this guy's depressed. He's probably got a gun to his temple. And meanwhile, he's in the background chuckling because he's writing a track to make fun of his girlfriend.
That's funny. Yeah.
You should look it up because I'm probably misquoting some of it, but I remember looking it up going, man, did this guy kill himself? You know, and then looked it up and he was just giving his girlfriend shit.
That's cool. That's a cool anecdote, man.
Yeah. I can hear George snoring. George, he's like, oh, they're talking about comic books. I'm out.
Oh boy.
Oh boy relates to yes, you're right.
No, not at all.
Yeah, because you're not a comic book fan, right, George?
No, I am. I just not as much as I think Seamus or you are, but you know, I grew up reading comics, of course. So Moon Knight was one of my favorites. So.
Yeah. So, well, let's change the topic a little bit here. What are we doing? We're doing okay on time. Let's change the topic a little bit here because both of you are producers. Like Seamus, you do a lot of producing as well, and you guys both tour a bunch. When you guys are coming up with samples and pulls for the tracks, are you guys collaborating with that? Like, where do you guys find most of your samples and stuff?
Well, that is something that George can answer. I don't like to talk about the sources that we sample from.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk involved in terms of.
Oh, sure.
There are sometimes you sample something that you just can't contact the actual artist to get clearance from, and that can come back and bite you in the ass,
Well, let's not be specific. Like, what do you guys? I mean, George, like I said earlier, I know that you are a huge old score fan and movie score fan. Are you guys just listening to that stuff all the time? Like how does it start?
I think it varies. I think a lot of it, it's a lot of bouncing back and forth. I work with a musician who does a lot of work on the albums, Jeremy Page, who in some cases will replay some of the stuff we're using if we want to be extra safe, or he'll just add on top of the samples if we're feeling, adventurous. And then, the stuff will make its way to Seamus. And, he's been very big on adding, a lot of the quirky vocal stuff that goes on in there that's playing off of his index vocals is coming from him. So I think once he kind of has like, a canvas to work with as far as a beat, it kind of opens him up creatively to like, fill in the blanks with some of the vocal texture stuff, little quirky stuff that kind of comes in. In some cases I'll supply him with some stuff and like, here's a scratch track, feel free to work with, what might work with what you have in mind. And in a lot of cases, he's just pulling from sources he had, or just making them up. I mean, he'll, a lot of the voices for some of the CZARFACE, actual skits and phrasing, but even like, the word CZARFACE, like a lot of that is just Shay kind of messing around with his voice or layering it, slowing it down, speeding it up. And, there's a lot of that going. So there is a lot of, I think, back and forth between us, as far as once we have, let's say, we have a beat that we like, okay, this one's a keeper. We want to work with this. Once we get to that step, which, like I said, begins with myself, then it's kind of, there's a lot of kind of back and forth and kind of, when we start a record or start a song, in most cases, I feel like by the time the record comes out, that song would have gone through a few different changes, for the better, you know what I mean? So it's kind of our process. It's very collaborative in the sense of it's never really done until we have the distributors or whoever beating down our doors to hand in a master. You know what I mean?
I think one of the things that I found challenging and something I always wanted to do since we started CZARFACE was to recreate something that sounded like we sampled it from an old VHS tape or sampled it from an old vinyl read-along record or something, but have it actually just be a CZARFACE story. And eventually get to the point where there'd be a fan that would finally ask me, wait, is CZARFACE, is that something that you guys invented, or did CZARFACE like exist in the 80s or 70s? Because it sounds like you're taking quotes from an old CZARFACE cartoon. And then I get to tell the person like, oh, we actually created those to sound that way based on, the stuff that we were inspired by in, coming up in hip hop in the 80s. If you hear the records we grew up listening to, if you cut in a phrase from an old radio station or a Minister Farrakhan speech or anything that could provide more flavor to your ear, so to speak, it added so much more to the songs for us and for me. So I love adding vocal samples to songs and dressing up, creating what we call kind of moments in the song that you can kind of go back and refer to. And I think, a lot of me and George is when we reflect on music or talk about songs and what made them dope, we would go back and reference, 2:59 in that song when this horn stab came in, and it never came in before that, never came in after, but right there, that gave you that extra jolt of energy to whatever, with that extra feeling. And, we try to, organically add those into our songs as well. And hopefully people will feel the same way about some of the stuff that we make.
Dude, I love it. I think it's great. The closest thing that I can refer that to is when I do sound design for sequences and scenes. And I've been doing that all week, actually. I just did a series of night videos, and I'm doing this. I'll have to send it to you guys. I think you'd dig it. I'm doing this really sort of strange sound design for stuff. And what's cool with visuals is that you can be literal about sound design. So like if you see somebody, opening a door and they grab a door handle, you can recreate the sound of the door handle and the jiggle and all that kind of stuff. Or you can completely go against that and make people incredibly uncomfortable. And I think one of the coolest movies that did that was Under the Skin, the Scarlett Johansson one, where she was walking out onto water in that sort of weird dreamy space. And instead of having her walk on water, they had her walking on like crunchy leaves. And so when you're watching this thing, you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Because audio, the way that the audio was conflicting with the visuals was really sort of stimulating this uncertainty and this discomfort. And I think a lot of people, especially because a lot of my listeners are filmmakers, so that's kind of why I bring it back to this. I think a lot of people are super hyper concerned with being literal with things. And I think that adding flavor and adding all these different little moments in there, causing some sort of emotional response, makes it more memorable and makes it a better experience, I think. And I know that's what I was trying to do with the music video with you guys. And I think that's why I did a couple of those breaks and added in lion roars and I put in a bunch of different sound effects in there because I wanted those moments to just jump out of that sequence so that you remember. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's very similar. Very similar.
Yeah.
I feel like there are times where when me and George creatively, not butt heads, but he'll have an argument between a certain song or a certain part of a song. And I'm saying, we got to do this. And he's saying, no, what's wrong with this? And he referenced, Life's a Bitch by Nas, which is a great song that we both love. And it's pretty much a hip hop staple at this point, but the beat never changes through the whole 3-minute song. And he's like, well, see, that worked. I'm like, well, that's Nas. It's 1994. AZ is on it. And it's just one of these things that, sometimes you got to get a little bit more colorful and switch it up for the attention span of somebody living in 2020. So you could have the things you can get away with in the 90s that you can't get away with in 2020 because I don't know what the average viewer stays on a particular story or video for, but I'm sure it's a lot shorter now than it was then. Back then you were happy to have this 3-minute offering and you're going to take it in and dissect it and break it apart. Now it's like if it doesn't hold your attention or show you a pair of tits in the fucking first 10 minutes, get out of there.
Yeah.
Sadly, we took that out of our video, right? Is that?
Well, look, I agree. I agree with you both. I think that there's part of me because I have that same internal battle internally in myself. So like it's like the both of you are in my head whenever I'm doing stuff. I get pissed off because I love a lot of stuff like you were saying, George, where like I'll examine scenes that are slow, intentionally slow. And the fact that you are uncomfortable is important. So go fuck yourself. Yeah. Like sit through this thing and go fuck yourself and live with it because I'm trying to build an emotion out of this. But then I also understand the dilemma of the fact that everybody has their little dopamine device in their fucking pocket. And so if they're feeling uncomfortable for a heartbeat or if they're feeling unstable for a heartbeat, they can just pick that up and check and get some likes and then feel good about themselves for like a second. And so being a storyteller, that's a real conflict right now because people in general have such, it isn't just having a low attention span. I think it's people want to feel good all the fucking time. And if there's a moment where they're feeling any sort of anxiety, if they're feeling any sort of uncertainty, they have the ability to reach in their pocket and change that. And that's tough if you're a storyteller. Because what I try to do with my stuff is I will experience a fear or I will experience something, especially as a horror director, I will experience something in real life and I'll go, okay, what I'm feeling right now, the reason I shit my pants, I need to try to recreate that through skill and through a technique for an audience. So that way when they're sitting in a theater, they shit their pants too. And having the restriction of the results of the MTV generation, where it was like hypercut, super fast cut, digest this stuff as much as possible, which, as I get further down this tangent, a lot of people don't realize that when you watch music videos that are supercut, or if you watch videos that are handheld, and this is something that I learned back in the day doing metal videos, it's because the performers suck. And so I'm going to say it's a really hard thing to say, and it's a hard truth to actually say out loud. But there was one video I did. I'm not going to say who the band is, but it was one video I did where I had this idea that I was just going to put the cameras on sticks. I was going to put the cameras on tripods and have them be locked off shots and have the people perform in different angles within these locked off shots. And I remember I set the shot up, had a monitor, had the band start to perform, and it was like a guitarist or somebody, and they started to do it, and I'm staring at the monitor and I'm like, why does this suck? Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And I'm like, is it because it's lit wrong? Is it because the lenses are wrong? Is the angle wrong? And so I was futzing with it, and I changed the angle. I went to a different angle, went to a lower angle, tried to make them seem bigger. And then I'm still watching and I go, why is it terrible? And it was because their performance was terrible. And so what I ended up having to do was take the camera off the tripod and handheld it, and I had to run around and shake it and do all this different stuff to add the energy that the performer wasn't conveying on the screen. Now, I'm not saying it was because the performer was terrible. Maybe I'm just a shitty director and I wasn't getting that performance out of them. But at the end of the day, I needed to mask that lack of emotional connection with technique.
Yeah.
And that has happened in film, big time in film, where you'll watch a lot of these movies like, specific directors that make movies about giant robots that crash into shit. And people are like, they're dumb and they don't have the emotional connection and emotional involvement. Yes. And so he's disguising that with a lot of like camera movement and lens flares and stuff. But then I was just watching, I just did a post about it. I was just watching Raiders of the Lost Ark again the other day because I'm studying for a new project. And fuck, that movie's perfect. That movie is perfect. And the way that Spielberg has designed every one of those shots, like if you go through and you break down how he does his blocking, no one makes note of the fact that Spielberg's shots typically last 2 minutes apiece before they cut. And they're so fucking enthralling to the point where you don't even realize it. So that comes back to what we were saying. There is a power in not juicing everything up and not adding all this different stuff to it, but you just have to find that emotional resonance within it that the audience stays connected to. And then you can add all the trimmings to it. Like some of the new Spielberg movies, like Minority Report, he does a lot of that stuff, but he adds all this beautiful texture with what would normally be samples or random things where he has like flares and all this different candy covering on it. But underneath, it's just loaded with the beautiful resonance, like a beautiful emotional texture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool shit, man. It's cool. So there are two different sides to the argument, and I get those sides of the argument. And by no means am I saying, as I say this out loud, by no means am I saying that your stuff needs this texturing because it doesn't have that emotional core. I think what makes the CZARFACE stuff so great to me is that it has that emotional root. It has those references, and you can totally hear the conflict that you guys are having by bringing these two different angles to it with the best intentions to make it even better than if it was you guys focusing on just doing one beat or you over-focusing on samples. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. It's interesting shit when you think about, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to take an emotion, we're trying to take a story that we have experienced and then make someone else experience it just by listening to it or just by looking at some flat fucking image.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Magic shit. I love it.
Yeah, I love with the process, man.
Oh, stop it. Another guest referencing the title.
Oh. How that must be, huh? What do you want?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. How are you guys feeling? You guys still good on time?
Yeah, I got a few more minutes.
Yeah.
What do you got? Want to play categories?
Yeah, let's do it. So let me ask you this. George, while we're talking about the score stuff and selling vinyls and stuff, what is your favorite score of recent? Like, what is the one that you're really pumped about?
A newer one. I like all the Cliff Martinez stuff. So like Solaris, I liked a lot. That was a one he did. I think Maniac. I think the remake he did. I'm trying to think of more recent ones. I'm having a brain block. Yeah.
Did you listen? Did you like? The last one I really dug was Disaster Piece for It Follows. I thought that.
Oh, that was actually really good. Yeah, that's actually a fantastic one. Yeah, that's a great example. And that was actually a great movie too.
Yeah, dude, that movie killed. And then I'm a huge fan of what Spectrovision is doing right now. I thought Mandy's score was really good.
That was really good. Yeah.
What's his name? It did that. Johansson. He died actually. He did that, and then he did. What was the big one he did? He did Arrival. Did he do Arrival? And then he did. He did Sicario, and the Sicario score was fucking killer too.
No, there you are.
That one was amazing. Have you heard this one yet?
You cut out for the last 10 seconds, I think. So
did you? He also did Sicario.
Oh yeah.
Sicario score.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, dude, amazing stuff. I love that shit, man. And the thing that's really cool about vinyl coming back is that the artwork on vinyl is so fucking great. You have like that tangible moment again where you can hold it, and open it up and see art printed. It's actually really nice to see art without that fucking blue backlight.
Yeah. No, for sure.
You know what I mean? I fucking love that shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're at a good point on the episode here. Like, I just want to say on the show and while, people are listening that, I was really happy that we got to collaborate on that video. It was a great time. It was a really fun project. I really enjoy working with you guys.
Dude, we had a blast. It worked out. It couldn't have worked out better, I think, all around, like just from being able to shoot in the hotel the way we did and a lot of like the last minute, dream seat, whatever, how it just worked out. So, obviously, we always reach out to you when we have some crazy, video needs. Usually we check in every couple of years to see what you're doing. So this just worked out great, and we were it was a pleasure, man, to just relink and kind of get to it. I'm sad there was no moped scenes for me in this one, but
that's true. That's true. Okay, so for the people that don't listen, that haven't seen, go back. I know I have them on my website if you go to mikepecci.com, but you can also find them on YouTube. Go check out the video that we did for Air 'Em Out. That was actually, it's a fun segue, actually. That was a fun video because we wanted to come up with something that connected to the retrospects video.
Yes.
Because the first video we did was the one where Seamus was kidnapped by the Russian gangsters.
Yeah, Ara.
Yeah. And for those of you who are 12 Cam fans that have seen 12 Cam, the lead, Ara, who is in that, we cast him in this video retrospects. And I think we cast him in that before I did 12 Cam. That was before 12 Cam.
Yeah, it was. Or you might have just been starting it or something, maybe, but it was before that for sure.
Yeah. Because Ara was he spoke Russian and he had a good look. I like to put an AK-47 in his hands. I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
And that was right around the time where I think we were just getting, at least I was getting a little bitter with the music video world as far as like dealing with labels and dealing with folks and dealing with egos. And so we were on this tangent. I think that was the beginning of the tangent where we like to beat the shit out of the lead singers. Music video.
You certainly did that. Shout to Nicole, who had like pistol whipping me, I think.
I love it, man. And for so long, because you get attached to that as a director and you're editing it and you're always seeing that image for quite some time, I just always associated you with a black eye, Seamus. Like, I don't know what it is. Like a bloody lip and a black eye.
Yeah. That's yeah. I mean, I'm glad. I mean, that was probably one of the first times I felt like as though we were really part of something that was more than a music video, more cinematic, and it was a good experience, regardless if I was getting beaten up and had all types of being duct taped and everything else. I thought it was well worth it.
Well, and it's one of the few videos that I've done that still holds up. Like, because we were watching it before we did this video, and I was sitting here going, "Fuck, this video is still really good."
Yeah.
It still holds up, and it's a fun adventure. And then when you guys came at us, when you formed CZARFACE, and you guys came at us with the Air 'Em Out video, it was a no-brainer. I think Tony and I were writing it at the time, and we were like, "Look, this has got to be a continuation." And so for those of you who haven't seen it, so Shay gets kidnapped in the first video, in the retrospects video, and he's held captive by a bunch of wild Russians. And then George has to show up with the ransom money, and the Russian gangster ends up taking the ransom money and the keys to his car, and then send the two guys running off like bitches, which
Oh boy.
and so then in the second video we pick it up, and the guys are on the phone, and it sounds like they're talking to a rough character, and it sounds like they're in trouble, and they end up having to go sit down across from Inspector Deck, who we tried to say is like the bigger mafioso sort of gangster. And then we went and filmed you guys going to have a sit down with him in a Chinese food restaurant, which still blows my mind that we got that fucking location.
Yeah, Red Lantern. That was you guys, right?
Yeah, that was like, I don't know how we got. So we shot in this giant, gaudy downtown Boston Chinese restaurant.
Red Lantern, right? Yeah.
Red Lantern, yeah. And it's, I mean, I don't know who owns the place, but it was just one of those spots that you could never get into film, and somehow we made it work. And then we did that sequence once again, stimulated by the production that you guys do with all the samples and the voices that you guys did, where we had Deck. It's such a weird concept. We had Deck. His bodyguards were what is it? Quintuplets or whatever. Where there's like four of them.
Oh, big.
Yeah, and it was essentially just this one guy that we did split screen, but we had him singing all the background, and the idea was that he had the same dude as his bodyguard multiple times.
Yeah, Big Mike.
Yeah, he was fucking great, dude. We had fun with him, and then the video we ended up chopping off and then playing out the back end on sort of a short story aspect of it, so it became more of a film. And turns out that Deck found the Russian gangster and then brings you guys down into this basement, this dilapidated moped basement that we were working in. And that place, by the way, that place was that gross in real life.
Yeah.
It was pretty disgusting. And then we went down there and they were torturing the Russian gangster a la Lethal Weapon 2 style, with Mel Gibson in getting electrocuted in the bucket. And that was our point of reference.
Yeah.
Because and that was the first time that we actually shot with anamorphics. And so we got these, dude, it's crazy the shit that we were able to pull together when we do your videos. We actually got these Hawk anamorphics, which were super fucking expensive and really fucking heavy to use. And then just getting those lenses changed the whole look of everything. It just felt like an old John McTiernan 1980s action movie. And then we shot the sequence in the basement where you guys are confronted with the guy that kidnapped you. And then you have to clean up business, which which is a lot of fun. So if you guys haven't seen these videos, like I said, you can go to my website, go to mikepecci.com. I have them all up there, easy to get access, but they're also on YouTube. But you'll see the origins of our stuff. And like I said, I've always had fun working with you guys because and you know what? Credit to you dudes, because you guys really let me do whatever the fuck I want.
Yes.
Which is nice. It's such a refreshing thing because I know there's a lot of music video directors that listen to the show. They can roll their eyes with me, where most of the time what happens is an artist will see a movie and then they'll want to be in that movie. And so then they'll send you some sort of treatment where it's like, remember that movie? Can you just put me in it? And you're just like, God. And so you guys have always had the imagination and the trust to let me do some awkward, like put Seamus on the back of a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You know, the fun stuff.
Yeah, that was fun, man.
Which that scene is actually a reference to Made. You ever see Made with Vince Vaughn?
Oh yeah. No, I remember. You referenced it. You had verbalized that then. Yeah, and I got it, man.
Yeah, where Vince Vaughn had to get on the back of the bike with the dude without a shirt.
Yeah.
Just unhappy about it.
So funny.
So it was a bunch of cool references. So if you guys are nerds, you guys are movie nerds, you guys are comic book nerds, and you guys haven't seen the CZARFACE stuff, then go check it out because you're going to fucking love it. And there's a reason why I essentially came out of music video directing retirement to work with these guys, because they're a lot of fun. And every time we do something, it ends up being gold. So,
if you do say so yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I have no problem saying that.
That's good.
Well, fellas, thank you for being on the show. I will not hold you back. I know we have an intense schedule of things to do today.
No shit.
But I'm happy that you guys are being safe. I'm happy you guys are healthy.
Yeah, Mike, you too, man.
And I appreciate it. Is there anything that you guys want to plug or anything that you guys want to talk about at the back end of this?
No, just visit.
CZARFACE.com. You know, that's where we have a lot of our vinyl and music and comics and merchandise at CZARFACE.com. And that's kind of our hub for all things CZARFACE universe.
Yes, sir.
Is your computer operative?
Excellent.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I love fucking talking with those guys. I'm so happy to be working with those guys again. I'm so happy that we did this project. If you can't tell, this is one of those jobs that not only makes you happy, but will also be around for a while, and people will be talking about it in the future. So it's really nice. It's really nice. It's one of those fucking moments where you do something and you're like, God damn it, we did it right. Fuck yeah. And I'm not just, this isn't ego here, guys. This isn't me just patting myself on the back. This is just saying, acknowledging when it goes well. And on the show, you've heard me be cynical about a lot of different things, but this is one of those moments where stars align and you find it and you make something really great. And you're all going to have that opportunity. Just be open to it. That's the one thing I will say, is that be open to that opportunity. Don't just close yourself off. Like there was a period in time where I would have been like, I don't do fucking music videos anymore. There's no money in this. I don't want to get into this shit. And if I had that mentality, I wouldn't have been able to make this work. There just has to be a good reason to start any project. And if you are open to the different rewards that you can get, and I don't mean just money and I don't mean experience. There are other rewards that come through with this. Just be receptive to it, and you'll find yourself making something or having an excuse to make something that's really great that a lot of people will see. And thank you, everybody that has checked it out, and thank you to all you guys that have sent me notes on the music video. I'm really happy that you guys responded to it the way that we intended. And as you could hear on this episode, George and Seamus are great guys. So definitely check them out. Put their Instagram accounts below. They're both doing a lot of really cool posts lately. Yeah, Fuck yeah. And as always, make sure to go check out my Instagram at Mike Pecci or the podcast at In Love with the Process Pod on Instagram. And yeah, I'm not going to drag this out. I've recorded 2 podcasts today and my voice is kind of pissed off. So Corona. So I'm going to let you guys go. Stay safe. Stay at home. And find something to keep yourselves sane.
Is your computer operative?
Excellent. Hey yo, excellent. Stop playing, it's my turn to smoke. Heavy dose of that murder I wrote. Don't let it burn your throat. I ain't from the same cloth, they be turning coats. I'm hood good, here to Chi-Town to Sherman Oaks. Ain't nothing worse than true lies, but new lies. I'm too wise, they be acting like they shoe size. Stormy days make you pray to see them blue skies. I'm from the fire right next to where the jewel lies. Scrutinize if you must, it's all we trust. Who hard is us, boy? We hit you with the karma touch. Tough as an armored truck, fresh like a barber cut. In other words, simply marvelous.
Check this file. I check this file. Check this file. I check this file.
Your flow dated 2 retros ago.
Sure is.
You were supposed to beat me 2 death blows ago. We can go toe to toe. We can go toe to toe.
Excellent.
Years back when you thought I might have mellowed. Grab the mic and rap, you fuck you, don't get our yellow.
Check this file.
My mind is the 9, so the brain will shoot you. When I write, it's like Stephen Strange looking in the future. This is Shorty on, you got a corgi on. I'm sipping 40s and Rick and Morty's on. Slow serving got me on the verge of murder. So catch me at your mom's house with a Tom Segura. Pizza Aura, Saucony Azora, CC Tug of Puller, Stanzo, Brand Fedora. I'm dangerous like churches and storefronts. Favorite rappers getting killed, but they want more guns. Can't be serious.
Your flow dated 2 retros ago. You were supposed to beat me 2 death blows ago. We can go toe to toe. We can go toe to toe.
When the twin powers activate, form of fire, everlasting flame. Street player like Chicago, Mac the game. The response is your highness when they ask his name.
Obviously, he can control the molecular arrangement of his body.
Yeah, but the odds are against you.
I live stream your team on the widescreen as I beat them clean, despite being obscene like a pipe dreaming crackhead's hygiene. Rhymes eat your soul, put you in a sleeper hole. Good night, Irene, like Adrian Adonis. I'm crazier than Xavier on the Sonics. You move the crowd, I hit stadiums with comments and make the haters vomit as I read a cable comic. This is food for thought, better put a label on it.
That's what happens when the shit is fresh, you know what I mean? It's like wild caught. They out there farm raised, you know what I mean? Sharing their house with the next wildling. 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 Wildling.
Dear computer, that'll be coming. Shit. Are we recording? Yeah, let it record though. It's recording, right? Okay, alright.
Oh shit.